Hey, welcome to our seminar on conquering college costs. With college costs as high as they are, obtaining resources to assist in that process can be essential. In today's seminar, Frank Palmisani will share with you every possible way to have a college sticker price reduced. He will also show you how to find affordable college options and pay for college without excessive debt. Frank is well-traveled in the world of college financial aid, serving as a high school counselor and college admissions director. He is the author of Right College, Right Price, and the creator of the online program titled Financial Fit. This is Frank's 31st year delivering seminars to high school parents on this topic. Please welcome Frank Palmisani.
Thank you. You should have some handouts and that's going to be valuable for you because as we go through the PowerPoint, you're going to see that the handouts will actually match the PowerPoint presentation. Also, I'd like to point out that the presentation will consist of the PowerPoint, and then I'm going to go to a website and spend some time on a free resource that you're going to have to get through this process. And then we'll also certainly answer your questions. So the big topic, and it's been a big topic now for quite some time, and that's the issue of college debt. Strangling college debt, over $1 trillion in the country, people calling it a national crisis. Yahoo Finance did a fantastic article about 3 weeks ago. And what they tried to do in this particular article was they tried to make a determination that there was a significant difference between reasonable borrowing and excessive borrowing. So it's not just the concept of borrowing in and of itself that is indeed a negative, because it can be a reasonable investment toward an education. The key is when that borrowing gets to be excessive, that it creates financial harm, potentially for the student and for the parent long term. So what we want to do today is use the seminar, use the online program, look at every possible way that we can get our sticker prices reduced, and then try to find methods to actually find these affordable college options that fit in all ways, and indeed pay for college thus without excessive debt. So let's start by defining some terms. Ryan used this terminology a number of times, and that was sticker price. So we all know what sticker price is. It actually has a definition to it. You know, it's called cost of attendance, and it's everything. It's tuition and fees, room and board, books, supplies, personal miscellaneous expenses, transportation. But literally, we want to divorce that from our mind. We don't want to be spending our time thinking about sticker price. What we really care about is what we are actually going to pay the institution. So we're going to call that net price. So how do we take the sticker price and begin to get it reduced? So what I want you to imagine tonight is that I have a series of buckets up here. And I'm the college. I'm any college. And what the college is trying to do is to see how many buckets they can use to take from to be able to reduce your particular sticker price at their institution. So regardless of your income, regardless of your assets, all you have to do is file a document. And the first bucket that we can take resources from is the bucket called the direct loan bucket. This is an opportunity for a student to borrow. Now, students can borrow $5,500 in freshman year, $6,500 in sophomore year, $7,500 in each of junior and senior years, and if they go a fifth year, another $4,000. Now, under the current interest rate structure, given the possibility that the student would borrow those maximum amounts, using the standard method to repay. The standard method to repay is starting 6 months after graduation, repaying monthly over a 10-year period of time. Using that method, that repayment would still be less than $300 a month. And so you might, in your own mind, decide that that is indeed reasonable borrowing. That's your choice. But it can be an opportunity for a student to make an investment in their own education. Now, the next particular program also doesn't have much to do with your income and assets. You file the document, and typically industrious kids can find jobs on college campuses. Now, obviously, they're not going to make enough to pay for college, but they can get a little bit of a dent in that. Some of these jobs are actually called federal work study, some not, part-time jobs. So in our discussion tonight, in our examples tonight, what we're going to do is to make two assumptions. We're going to assume the student indeed takes on that $5,500 direct loan in freshman year and gets a job for $2,500. So if that were to be true, you could take any college cost in the country and immediately reduce it by $8,000 in terms of your net price. Now, the next program is very much tuned in to your income and assets. This particular program is called the Federal Grant Program, or the Pell Grant. So after you file this document, something is going to come back to you. And what comes back to you is a number. That number is called your EFC. Now, the actual terminology is expected family contribution. But I don't want you to be misinformed by that. That's not what they're saying they expect you to pay, and it is not an assessment of your affordability. It is simply a number that determines for the colleges what buckets can they pull from. So if you were to have a very low EFC number, extraordinarily low, like 6,000 or lower, then the college could pull money from the Pell Grant bucket and use that as a way to reduce your sticker price. Now, if you were to go to a school in the state of Illinois, and you also have a low number, a number that is 9,000 or lower, the state of Illinois has a program called MAP. This is the Monetary Award Program, and then indeed the college can pull money from the MAP bucket and use it to reduce sticker price. But I will tell you, it is very hard to have EFC numbers that low. These are low EFC numbers. However, if one has an EFC number higher than 9,000, but lower than the cost of the institution, there might be another potential bucket, and that is the need-based grant money that many, many colleges have at their institutions. And so dollars can be pulled from that bucket to reduce your sticker price. But the most common way that colleges are using resources to reduce your sticker price are discounts. Discounts that they will probably call academic scholarships. So, when we think about this concept of scholarships, especially academic scholarships, we might have in our own mind the notion that, these are designed for the brightest kids. But that's not true today. Many, many colleges are taking parameters like a test score or GPA and using that. A lot of them have scales, certain test scores, certain GPAs equal X amount of money, this one equals this much more. You see this all the time. And so these are more, again, opportunities for the college to discount their sticker price. Now, you all know the stories of the exceptional student athletes. These kids who are so good in their sport that they get full rides. I'm not talking about those students. What I am talking about are students who have played athletics in the high school level, and they want to continue doing that on the collegiate level. That particular interest, and obviously along with their ability, oftentimes can lead to another bucket of resources that can be used to reduce sticker price. Here's where that student, that parent really needs to get out and market that interest to a number of college coaches. There's so many easy ways to do that today. Websites that allow you to do that, ways you can get, large amounts of emails to college coaches and so forth. Indicating interest, marketing one's athletic abilities. I'm going to ask a question. And I'm going to ask you a question of all of you that's so obvious you won't need to raise your hand. How many people in here think that their son or daughter has giftedness, talent, beyond a test score and a GPA? Obviously, you would all raise your hand, right? You know about your child's giftedness. Now, maybe it's in art or music or theater. Maybe they're a leader. Maybe they're a volunteer. Maybe they're passionate about a certain academic discipline, one that colleges are really interested in. The point is, we want to make sure that the colleges know about that giftedness. So what's the best way to do that? I think every one of you should encourage your sons and daughters to create a professional-looking resume. And every time you have a conversation with a college representative, when the college is here to visit Lamont, when you're out attending a college fair, when you visit a college campus, have the student hand that representative that professional-looking resume. What you're really trying to do is to alert that person of all of these talents, or some of the talents the student would have, with the possibility that that rep can be your advocate for the exploring of additional dollars at that particular college. I feel so strongly about this, and I think this is a mistake that many young people are making. So I'm going to create a scenario for you. Let's assume that somewhere between the summer of junior and senior year, the the family went out and visited some college campuses. So I'll just pick a college. So you went out to Marquette University. The student came back after their visit, and they were actually convinced that they were going to apply to Marquette. They were going to go ahead and do that. Now, the following week, after they make that decision, Marquette University happens to come to visit Lamont High School. You know, colleges are out and about visiting high schools quite a bit this time of the year. So your son or daughter sees that they're coming, but they don't go to that session because in their own mind, they've already said to themselves, I already know I'm going to apply to Marquette. There's really no benefit in me going. I think that's a huge mistake. I think every student should take every opportunity to enhance and develop the relationship they have with admissions professionals. Those people can be advocates and indeed increase your opportunity to have sticker prices reduced. I want to talk a little bit about competitive academic scholarships. Remember I said just a few minutes ago that there's an opening salvo that happens in many situations. You apply, you get accepted, and right away the college is saying, you qualify for X amount of scholarship. Unfortunately, many people in their own minds say, okay, that's what the college is going to offer, and stop there. But many campuses today, many institutions today, are then offering other opportunities if the student would continue in the process and come out to the campus and compete for other awards, other scholarship options, other academic scholarships. So continue to push, explore, ask about other competitive scholarship options. I want to talk a little bit about independent scholarships. You know, we live in a world of information. This information is so accessible to students about independent scholarships. And you would think that that's a huge advantage, right? So the common thing for many students to do is to go onto a website. Now, the most prominent of these websites is fastweb.com. There's another one, scholarships.com, and several others. And they basically all work the same way. What happens is a student gets in, they put in their data, and they get a laundry list of scholarship options they can apply to. As a matter of fact, they get inundated with emails. Apply here, apply here, apply here, apply here. You can qualify for this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. Ultimately, that what appears to be a benefit ends up being a curse to them because they have no way to filter all of this, and oftentimes students feel overwhelmed. So, here's my suggestion. What I would like to see you all do is to create an organizational system around the pursuit of independent scholarships. So for every independent scholarship that is viewed, you classify it. Is it local? Is it regional? Is it national? Now what do I mean by local? Local organizations are organizations that every year give out money to Lamont students. These are the scholarship opportunities that you should never miss out on. You should make sure that your son or daughter clearly knows what system is used by the guidance office to disseminate information about these local scholarships. Because that's the smallest competitive pool. Don't miss out on any of those opportunities. Then the regional ones, okay? We're living in a region. You live in a region, Will County, whatever that region is, DuPage County, right? So ultimately, there are going to be scholarship opportunities for students living in that county. You're going to probably see those scholarship opportunities posted on the high school website, but also don't hesitate to check out the websites of all of the other high schools that are in the county, because that's the next step. So you go from local, makes sense to apply to those, to potentially the regional ones. What you don't want to do is spend a lot of energy pursuing scholarships that anyone in the country can be doing. And this is what these national databases do for us. They give us a lot of information, a lot of options, but you're chasing stuff that you have to compete with everyone else for. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the obvious. And the obvious is, you all know this, I don't even need to talk about it. If a student is willing to make a commitment to the military, they can receive significant discounts. I had an exchange with a student today who told me they won an NROTC scholarship and is going to have free tuition at their institution. Okay, so there's these tremendous opportunities. I want to talk about 2 state school programs. Now, what's really happening in this arena is extraordinarily interesting to me. And that is we are seeing more and more state schools create pathways to residency. So here's what I mean by that. You know that as a resident of Illinois, when you choose state schools or look at state schools that are outside of Illinois, that sticker price is higher because you're a non-resident of that state, right? So there are schools now that are showing families pathways to become residents. Probably the one that has been the most aggressive in this area is the University of Missouri at Columbia, okay? Where it's a clear pathway on how you become a resident. So that's a significant lowering of sticker price, potentially as early as sophomore year. Now, I just heard the University of Iowa is starting to do this as well. So be cognizant of that as you look at these other state-supported state institutions, out-of-state state-supported institutions, for potentially these pathways. Understand this, though. The families that go this route do tell me it's a double-edged sword, in a sense that there can be a reduction of sticker price, certainly, but you don't see your kid very much because they are probably going to be living on that college campus and in that state during the summer. Now, here's another possibility. Something called the Midwest Tuition Exchange. I would go ahead and Google that. If you Google Midwest Tuition Exchange, you'll get a listing of all of the colleges that are in the exchange, and those colleges are offering discounts to Illinois students. Now, you know, for example, Ball State has an $11,000 discount to Illinois students based on being a part of the exchange. And so you'll see a number of different colleges there that offer discounts to Illinois kids called the Midwest Tuition Exchange. All right, now I want to change gears a little bit. And here is probably an area that I have a slight disagreement with Ryan, who spoke to you before. Not a major disagreement, but slightly different approach. So one of the things you heard in that earlier presentation, and it's an idea that probably no high school counselor in America would disagree with, and that's the concept that we want to help our kids find colleges that are the right fit for them. Now, when we have that conversation with students about academic fit, usually they get it. Usually you talk to them about saying, well, you want to look at schools that have the major, that have the program that you're most interested in. Sure. You want to look at schools where you can be academically successful. Sure. And then when you talk to students about field, this is an area that Ryan spoke quite a bit about. This whole idea that, you know, students are going to feel different on certain college campuses. Oftentimes this does speak to location or size. Students really get that. They understand that. They want to go to places where they can be the most comfortable. But folks, in my experiences doing this, I started in counseling in 1976. In my experiences, this is an area they clearly do not get, the concept of the financial aspect. They just don't have the understanding, the expertise to really be able to recognize the importance of prudent financial decisions. In some ways, families, you have to save yourself. You have to save your kids from themselves. This is where I think as parents you've got to get involved. And you want to get involved early in the process. Because if you can bring all of these three things together, you have a much greater chance of coming up with the best fit school and one that won't bankrupt the family over that long period of time. So what exactly do I mean when we talk about financial fit? And this is the area that maybe for many of you, if you haven't heard me speak tonight, will be something relatively new ideas. When we talk about financial fit, what I want you to do is to imagine every college in the country can be classified into one of three areas for you. And that's what you really want to do. You want to determine, are the schools likely going to be a financial reach? Is the school potentially going to be in my wheelhouse that we'll call a financial fit? And are there schools that can be financial backup sports? And what we're going to try to do tonight is to show you, by understanding these three bullet areas, how you're going to get there, okay? How you're going to get to be able to classify schools early on as reaches, fits, or backups. The first is, you need to understand how the category of the institution impacts its net price. Now remember, when we're talking about this, we're not even looking at sticker price. Sticker price doesn't mean anything to us. We want to get to net price. So how does the category of the institution impact the net price? I'm going to talk about that. The next component I'm going to talk about is how you systematically assess affordability. So I started doing presentations in 1985. So actually, to be honest with you, in 1985, I was in a similar position to the position that Ryan's in. I was in admissions work at Lewis University, eventually was director of admissions there. And in 1985, as I did this presentation, and during that 30-year period now that I go to 40 or 50 high schools every year, there are a lot of things that have changed. Obviously, systems changed somewhat. Clearly, the economics of the country has changed, and college costs have risen exponentially during that period of time. But here's one thing that has been so common. If I did a presentation in 85, 95, 2005, or today, and went up to a family randomly and asked them a question, what do you actually think you can afford to pay for college? Automatically, people typically tell me the amount of money that they put aside in savings. So what we try to do is to suggest to look at the notion of affordability more systematically, and therefore analyze 4 areas. Analyze whether you're going to be eligible for tax credits. Many people pay less in federal taxes when you have college costs, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Analyze the cash flow. You're saying to yourself, we don't have cash flow available. But it can be, with no change in lifestyle, cash flow transfer. You have expenses now while your child is living home. You don't have those same expenses when they're living somewhere else. It can be a cash flow transfer. Savings, and whether or not reasonable parent borrowing makes sense. Those 4 areas. And then the final component is understand how to maximize the use of net price calculators. So, think of it this way. Ryan showed you a website that is giving data out there. This was a major initiative that the federal government took. Another major initiative that the federal government took to try to help the consumer, help families, was they made every college in the country come up with a software program on their website called the Net Price Calculator. And so now what we can do is use those software programs to get away from looking at sticker price and to better estimate net price. So to effectively use net price calculators, what do you need to know about yourself? Typically 3 things. You want to learn your EFC number. And I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to do that very quickly. Okay? Not try to interpret it, just know it. Second thing is you want to know or be able to predict your test score. So if you're the parent of a senior, you know your ACT composite. If you're the parent of a junior, sophomore, freshman, you might want to predict it based on other testing parameters and know the GPA. And armed with that information, you should be able to navigate any net price calculator in the country and use that to your benefit. And we're going to show you how in a bit. All right, so let's talk a little bit about college categories. This is an incredibly important part of the presentation. This is probably the area that is spoken the least about when I travel from school to school and when I go from conference to conference. So when we think about net prices and how net prices change, what you're going to see is categories that are state-supported institutions and private institutions. So I'm going to use terminology like the following 2 words: flagship. So what is a flagship state school? Well, typically it is the premier state-supported institution in a state. So, for example, in Illinois, we have 1 flagship state school. That's the University of Illinois, Urbana. Michigan has Michigan and Michigan State. Indiana has IU and Purdue, right? So you might have some states that would have 2. Most states have 1, okay? Now, of course, as you know, we have a lot of other state schools, right? Eastern, Western, Southern, ISU, and so forth. So we're simply going to call them non-flagships. So now 2 categories morph into 4, because you have the flagship in your state and the flagships out of your state. And the same thing for the non-flagships. Every private college in the country, every one, can be classified into one of 3 types. Either highly selective, mid-sized private, or traditional private. Now, what do we mean by highly selective? You know who they are. This is Notre Dame. It's the University of Chicago. Northwestern, the Ivies. When we start talking about net price, understand this is the most unique of all the categories. These groupings live in a world of their own. They do things no one else does. They have the highest sticker prices. Have you guys looked at the sticker prices of these institutions? University of Chicago sticker prices are in the 60s per year. I mean, these are outlandish yearly sticker prices, right? But they're also the most generous. So sometimes what you have to do is understand that you get away from stopping yourself from looking at these institutions because of the sticker price. So, I would say if your son or daughter has the academic muster to consider these places, go do everything else that we're going to be talking about. You might find out, surprisingly, that they can be affordable. The problem is, it's just not very realistic for a lot of students. They're so difficult to get into. Give you an idea. University of Chicago last year had 30,000 applications. They accepted 2,600. So these types of schools are really, really hard to get accepted to. But some students might be able to, and it still might be affordable. But what is the primary difference between the mid-sized privates and the traditional privates? Typically it's size. So mid-sized privates are 7,000 students or more usually, and there's not a lot of them. This is the smallest grouping of colleges across the country. There are places like Marquette, St. Louis University, University of Dayton, University of Tampa. There's some others certainly, but not a lot. Now counter to that are the traditional privates. That's the largest of all of the categories, the traditional private college category. So what do we know about net prices in general? Okay, some important points, and recognize I'm going to give you some general ideas, and then we're going to bring it down to specifics when we go to our example. So what do we know generally about these categories and net prices? Where is it the most difficult to get sticker price reduction and significant sticker price reduction? The most difficult category to get significant sticker price reduction is clearly the flagship state schools, okay? The most liberal, the category that you are likely to get the greatest sticker price reduction is the traditional privates. Now, the non-flagship state schools typically will net price out very similar to traditional privates for many families. So, sticker price reduction can often be found in the non-flagship state schools, plus lower sticker prices. And so they net price out in very similar ways, in some cases, even lower ways than traditional privates, okay? Now, you're going to also see two other points in the last bullet. Normally, as we try to build financial reaches, financial fits, and backups, normally these two ideas are always the backups. So understand that a major aspect of what you pay at college today has nothing to do with the classroom experience. Nothing. And it has nothing to do with the degree at the end of the experience. Nothing. It has to do with the living experience. Now, I'm all for a living experience, but the cost for a living experience on college campuses today is somewhere between $8,000 to $13,000 a year. If that's the amount of money that indeed brings a family over the edge financially and now creates financial hardship over a long period of time, puts a family in a position of excessive borrowing, maybe the backup position ought to be thought about. The backup being, think about the colleges that are in your geographic area where the student could live at home, get the kind of degree you're looking for, but you not have that extra expense. I have 4 children. I have 2 college students right now, 2 adults that have been in a workplace for a while. 2 of my 4 kids lived at home. Not great for everyone, doesn't work for everyone, but I mean, it's not ridiculous to think that that's a possibility. And then the final backup, and Ryan spoke a little bit about this. So let's assume, I've already said that in general terms, flagship state universities don't discount much. So let's assume you have a thought that you want your child to graduate from one of those institutions that are going to be the highest price to you, net price to you. And yet, you really believe in the power of that institution. You think that there's great value in graduating from a school like that in the workforce down the road. The degree from X school is going to bring more value to the workforce. So you net price it out. And when you net price it out over a 4-year period of time, you come to the conclusion that it's a financial reach. And one that you really think if you make do, if you do it, you make this commitment, it's going to put your family in financial jeopardy. But you can still get the same degree